You are Locked On Tigers POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I mean, what a disaster. Welcome into Locked On Tigers POSTCASTs. I am your host, Jake Riepma, at Jake_Riepma on Twitter. I don't know what I just watched. It was a Little League baseball game where one team was just dominant over the other. 10-0 the final in this one. And they're not going to yell and get upset. It was just a really, really bad night to start off the homestand for the Tigers. After an off day yesterday, you got blown out in Texas in the final game of that 3-game series. To come home and just lay an egg like this. Again, not going to get super upset, not worth it, but my goodness, 10-0. The Brewers come into Comerica Park and take the opener. Reese Olson gets shelled. The offense is shut out. And I think we all can agree it's time to retire the City Connect uniforms, at least for a little while. That's what's on tap for tonight. Welcome one, welcome all. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers POSTCAST your destination for Tigers post-game reactions. Your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest way and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And let's get it going because I don't even know what to talk about tonight. To be perfectly honest. So get your comments in on YouTube. If you're watching the live edition, Locked On Tigers POSTCAST, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit. And nights like tonight, honestly, it's what we used to do at 97.1 The Ticket, open phone lines. I'm not even going to have a call screener. I'll read every comment because that was just, that was a double palms up. What is happening? What are we watching? And we already got people into the comments already. Demetrius McNeil, Jake, that's twice the Tigers offense was out of sync. 1 run on 4 hits will not help you at all. Have you seen the Bad Boys Ride or Die yet? I have not seen the Bad Boys yet. I love going to the theater. And on a night like tonight where the Tigers lose 10-0, maybe we will talk about what movies we're going to see at the theaters here in the coming weeks. I'm going to watch that Donald Sterling special on Hulu. So yeah, that's the kind of night it is. We're just gonna riff about anything besides that egregious performance from the Tigers tonight. But I do want to get into Reese Olson getting shelled. I don't know if I'm going to call the Boston outing a shelling, but that's back-to-back outings where he's got knocked around pretty good. And the Brewers came in tonight and a 5-run spot in the second inning, 3 more in the fourth, and with this Tigers offense, you're pretty much out of the game if you give up 5 runs in a single frame. And as we often say, it's an uphill battle. And Reese Olson just didn't give the Tigers a chance to win tonight. And listen, I'm not going to hold him to the Cy Young standard that every time he goes out, he has to, put forth 6 innings and more of one-hit baseball and a shutout performance. But my goodness, what happened tonight? And it just kind of took the life out of the building, took the air out of the balloon, whatever cliche you want to use, to where, again, you're watching this game. It's like, it's Little League. It's like if you've ever played competitive ball growing up, where there's just some teams that are way better than others. And that's what the example was tonight. It's just the Brewers were so much better than the Tigers in all aspects. And that's back-to-back games where you really just didn't have a chance. And I know the finale, I don't want to spend too much time on that with the finale against the Rangers with Maeda leaving after 2 pitches and unplanned bullpen day, but 9-1 and then 10-0. I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that's 19-1 over the course of the last 2 games with an off day sprinkled in there. And you got to wonder where this team is at in the headspace. And you fall below 500 with the loss tonight, now 31-32. Brewers are having a good season, 37-26, 19-16 on the road. Tigers have not been great at home, 14-16. And I don't know, other than, again, without getting upset and screaming into the microphone, I don't really know what there is to say about this game other than it was a team that wasn't ready to play. And I scratch my head. Maybe you're allowed a couple of these games each year. You get one per quarter maybe. And this is the middle quarter where the Tigers just didn't show up and had no interest being there. Pitching was terrible. Hitting was terrible. Everything was terrible. And, I feel bad for Jason Benetti and Craig Monroe on the broadcast. They're having to play, take out frozen grapes and play mini baseball with frozen grapes. And Benetti was tossing grapes to Craig Monroe, who was using a mini bat to hit the grapes. That's the kind of baseball we were watching tonight. Matt Wood in the comments saying the way Reese started out the game, I thought it was going to be a good outing. Yeah, I mean, I watched that first inning and I almost had the thought of, okay, he shook that bad outing against Boston off and he's good to go. Here we go. Let's buckle up the seatbelt, dial it in, and see how this Tigers team can go forth, because that first inning, he did walk Christian Yelich, but other than that, 3 strikeouts. He strikes out the side in the first inning, and then all goes to hell in the second inning with the single, double, gets the strikeout, a single there, the triple from Perkins, Turang single, and it was just plating run after run after run. And like I said, this is not Reese Olson's fault for how bad the offense has been. And maybe it's not fair to keep saying how bad the offense has been, but anytime a team puts a 5-run inning together, you're going to be up the creek without a paddle with this Tigers team. And there's just not the margin of error for that, which is what makes tonight disappointing, because you felt like you sat down to watch the game and it was over by the second inning. And, we endured the rest of the game. They played relatively quick, all things considered, with it being a 10-0 game. But that is just a forgettable night. So if you want to vent, you want to riff, let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure don't hold anything back, because I am everybody's wired a little bit differently. I'm of the belief where, hey, this was a really, really bad night. Things went wrong from the very beginning, and you almost chalk it up to, hey, we got 162 of these, and let's come back better tomorrow, and let's go try and win 2 in a row to take a series. And it's one of the I feel like this happens in football more than anything else, where you get the old school coach that when you used to have VHS game film or even DVD film, and they symbolically say, we're burying this film and we're never going to watch it again. It's time to move on to next week. That's and obviously in the baseball format, it's not next week, it's tomorrow. So we just move on to tomorrow, because that's how bad tonight was. A couple other people in the comments, Born Cool, what the hell did I just watch? Yeah, that's what I opened the show with. What was that? I mean, to add insult to injury, and it's not Zach McKinstry's fault, but you got to trot him out in the 9th inning and watch a position player pitch because the game is so far out of balance. And it's like Little League. Again, it's like Little League travel baseball, where any, amateur level of play, where sometimes it's just one team is so much better than the other. You, the fans, the parents, the umpires, everybody involved in the game, you just put the double palms up. You're like, what are we doing here? This is a waste of time for everybody. And that's really how it felt tonight. Whew. All right. I said I wasn't going to get upset. I feel the blood pressure kind of rising a little bit. And that's why we've got Mr. Nick in the comments. Thank you, Mr. Nick. Marathon, not a sprint. Late to his game, but I do enjoy listening to Benetti, especially how he handled announcing during a drubbing like tonight. Great point, Mr. Nick, because I was actually talking to my girlfriend, Sydney, while we were watching this game together. And I was like, I've announced a lot of blowout games before, and there really is no perfect way to go about it. But I know a lot of people on Tigers Twitter were wondering if Craig Monroe had been drinking tonight, because he was very animated, and he often is animated, and they were funny. But to Mr. Nick's points, I do think they kept it somewhat entertaining and somewhat engaging, even in the midst of a blowout. Because again, we can run through this box score if anybody wants to. The Tigers are terrible, and they were terrible tonight, I should say, and back below a game under 500. Javi Baez, maybe we'll pick on him, because it's not a say something nice about Javi Baez episode, but 0 for 3, and I believe that's 1 for his last 32. I mean, what are we doing? 1 for his last 32, and don't fact check me on that. I just know at one point He was 1 for 29. I can't remember if that was the second game of the Rangers series or the finale in Texas. Point being, like, he's just not a big league player. He's not a big league hitter. You can't put him in the lineup unless you want to DH for him instead of the pitcher. And obviously I'm being a little bit facetious. You're not going to DH for your shortstop, but that's where we're at. And then we have Scott Harris telling us, oh, he plays such great defense. And Scott Harris gaslighting us about how great the development, how important it is to develop young guys. And yeah, all right, this is not a Jake get upset kind of episode because the Tigers lost 10-0 and start talking about the direction of this franchise. We're going to power through it. We're already to our first break. We're going to talk about Reese Olson concerns, the offense being shut out. And I do think it's time to just, hey, the City Connect uniforms, we got a little hot streak with them. That was fun, but the Tigers need to be wearing the white uniform with the old English D at Comerica Park. It's just as simple as that. So we'll break it down. Don't go anywhere. Locked On Tigers postcast continues in just a minute. All right, today's show is made possible by Policy Genius. And don't tune out. I know what you're thinking. Oh, life insurance isn't that exciting to talk about. And maybe it's not that exciting, but it is important. Take it from me, somebody who has had some events happen in their life where unfortunately you lose people. That's the reality of the situation. And it's important to be equipped to handle that loss through the importance of life insurance. That's right. Life insurance with Policy Genius. Life insurance is made easy because life is unpredictable. Let's just face it. But with good life insurance and a good life insurance plan that can give your family financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns, things that happened to me. I'm glad my parents had life insurance because of the financial security net that it provided. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace that makes choosing the right policy for your family quick and easy. Because again, I'm not going to lie to you and say this is the most exciting and most fun thing to do, but it is important. And with Policy Genius, you can find it life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. And some options are 100% online. So that lets you avoid the unnecessary medical exams. And overall, it's just a very, very smooth process. And if you have life insurance, you know the importance of it. And let me just add one more layer to it. Maybe you're a parent, you're a caregiver. Life insurance takes on that much more of an important part of your life because you want to protect not just you, but your loved ones as well. Policy Genius helps you easily compare options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. And maybe you say, hey, I've got life insurance through my work, but you better double check that because not every work policy covers as much as you might think, and it may not offer the protection that your family truly needs. And Policy Genius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other. So they know, they're just taking the best option for you so you can trust their guidance. So get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com. And again, not the most fun and exciting topic, but important. Policygenius.com. Head to policygenius.com and find out for yourself the importance of life insurance. Get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com. All right, on a night like tonight, I want to make it heavily involved with everybody in the comments. So let me know what you think. Back to reading some of your comments. And again, we'll get to the City Connect uniforms because there's not a lot more to say about it, but I know we had a little fun winning streak with the City Connect uniforms. We were talking about they have a good mojo, that sort of thing, but it's time. They've served their purpose. They were a fun little alternate for a couple of games, but it's time to move on from the City Connect uniforms or just put them on the shelf until until whatever the predetermined date was, and I don't have the dates memorized, but I know when the City Connect uniforms were released, said the Tigers are going to wear them on this date, this date, this date. They win a couple of games with them, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's wear it for every home game. And again, they grew on me. They really did. I will say that. They grew on me, but I don't need to see the adult softball uniforms with the tire tread that say Motor City across the chest every single home game. Let me see the traditional, classic, prestigious white uniform with the navy blue Old English D. All right, let's get into some of the comments. Tony Witherspoon, that double steal allowed was he said unexcusable. Yeah, that was a Little League play. Great point. The Brewers not only were the Brewers the better team, but it's almost like it's the equivalent of an offensive line just imposing their will on a defense in football, where you're watching it happen and there's just nothing you can do about it. I think that double steal was a great example where I think at some point, and maybe I'm not even the best person to say this because I've had my I guess my beef with AJ Hinch, or not even beef, but I voiced my displeasures with AJ Hinch. I think he gets a free pass all the time. Yes, he won a World Series with the Astros, but we all know I don't want to say asterisk, but we know that team cheated and that was proven. And, there's he gets a free pass for that. And I'm not holding that against him because I think he was remorseful. I think he was sorry. And I don't want to go that direction with him. But my point is AJ Hinch was brought to Detroit and we felt like we were getting the greatest manager known to man. And time in and time out, it feels like this team is not ready to play. And I know it's not football where, rah, 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 we got one game this week, everything we got, where there are going to be nights in baseball where you're not ready to play and you play lackadaisical. But it does seem like to the Tigers, and I don't watch every team every single night, so maybe other teams have these same issues. Obviously, we're not the Chicago White Sox. That's something to be thankful of. But it just seems like it was missed cutoff men the other night. It was the double steal tonight. It was, allowing teams to take the extra base on you, where it just doesn't feel like this team is gritty and doing everything they can to win in every aspect of the game. And the double steal is an example of that. Demetrius McNeil in the comments saying bottom of the first inning became the turning point. Matt Vierling got picked off at first, changed the game in a big way. Yeah, that wasn't great. And I think Vierling I'm not going to use tonight's platform or tonight's postcast as Matt Vierling needs to be better, because he's one of the few guys that I feel like has consistently brought it for this Tigers team from a positional player standpoint. But I agree. That was, it took some momentum away from the Tigers, and then the Brewers turn around and get 5 runs. It's not Matt Vierling's fault the Brewers got 5 runs, but let me know where you're at with the concern level of Reese Olson, because again, I don't want the takeaway tonight to be, oh my God, I'm panicking with Reese Olson. But on Saturday, June 1st against the Red Sox, it was 5 1/3, 6 hits, 5 earned runs. And then against Toronto, much better, 6 1/3, 1 run on 3 hits. But then the start before that was when he left early against Kansas City, giving up the 1 earned run, but it was only after 2 2/3. And then all the starts before that, he's been lights out. But that is 3 starts in the last 4 where he has just not been himself. And one of them you could chalk up to injury and whatnot. But I think some of the, how do I phrase this in baseball terms? Some of the, maybe magic is the right word, where he was just, and it's a shame because he should have won every game he pitched early in the season, but there was no run support. But water is finding its level a little bit with Reese Olson, and that's part of the ebbs and flows of being a starting pitcher. That's going to happen. You're not going to go 8 scoreless innings every time out. But as this season progresses, it felt like Reese Olson was overachieving to begin the season. Maybe now he's getting back to that level that he's a little bit, maybe not more indicative of who he is. I'm not taking anything away because he's still young enough that, maybe he can burst onto the scene and be the guy that he was in the month of April and in the early portion and later portion, other than the last three out of the last 4 starts, essentially. Maybe that is truly who he is. But again, I don't think he's reached that level of cachet where, like with Skubal, every time he takes the mound, you say, all right, we're going to win this game. And we're going to at least get 6 innings of probably 1 to 2, maybe even shutout baseball from Tarek Skubal. And Reese Olson has shown flashes of that, but a start like tonight kind of eliminates that level of consistency that we have seen from Tarek Skubal and recently Jack Flaherty, and earlier in the season, Reese Olson. But again, it's a long season. There's a lot of starts. So kind of a come back to earth type of feeling around Reese Olson. And I'm anxiously anticipating his next start because maybe it's let me bounce back and show you who I truly am. But that said, Tigers lose this one 10-1 to the Brewers. I'm sorry, 10-0. Yeah, they didn't score a run. Who am I kidding? And they've now been outscored 19-1 in their last two games. Born Cool in the comments. I think Reese may be hitting reality, but we got enough guys that can fill his role. It's offense that seems hopeless. Yeah, like that's hopeless is a good point there, Born Cool, because I don't feel hopeless at all with Reese Olson. In fact, I feel optimistic that he's going to bounce back his next start. But when it's more and more of the same from this lackluster offense with no signs of changing, that's where the hopeless and lack of hope sets in, because it really is this is who we are. And obviously the front office isn't doing anything about it, which brings me to my next point. Pat Caputo, not former colleague of mine from 97 Won the Ticket, wrote an awesome column that I want to discuss. And on a night like tonight, Tigers lose 10-0. I think it is okay to discuss this column from Pat Caputo. So that's what we're going to do next. It talks about how this upcoming deadline for the Detroit Tigers is going to tell you everything you know, everything you need to know as a fan. So we'll break that down next. Don't go anywhere. Locked On Tigers Postcast continues in just a moment. All right, you guys know the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is with Prize Picks. You simply pick more, you pick less. It's that easy. You're taking a couple of players' projected stat lines. You're picking more, you're picking less. It's that easy. That's what makes Prize Picks America's most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is download the app, see for yourself, and get in on the action, because with Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you're locked in. That's what we talk about on Locked On, being locked in, right? If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered. Every single week, there's new promotions, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chances of getting a win and winning big, to your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. So Prize Picks is flexible, it's exciting, it's different. They always keep it fresh. One of the many things I love. You also have an insurance policy with Prize Picks. That's super nice. One of the few books that allows that. Prize Picks offers injury insurance so that your lineups stay in play even if one or more player gets injured for baseball games. If you have a player who registers 2 plate appearances or less, Prize Picks will have your back and not count that as a loss. How about that? I was playing Prize Picks last night for game 1 of the NBA Finals. I picked more on Kyrie Irving's point total, and he let me down. So that means I need to get back at it for game number 2. I think the Mavs are going to bounce back in a big way. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's downloading the Prize Picks app. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And don't forget, Prize Picks, it's real simple. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy app. Okay, Pat Caputo wrote a comment or column in or for 97 Won the Ticket, how this upcoming trade deadline is going to tell you everything you need to know. If the Tigers kind of keep this 500 pace and the organization and the front office decides to sell, well, there you go. They're not serious about winning. It's back to the perpetual rebuild. It's a hamster running in a wheel going nowhere. It's a sad, sad state of what this franchise once was when Mr. Ilitch was in charge. May he rest in peace. And we were a top 10 spending organization, top 10 payroll, perennial AL Central contenders every single year, going to the playoffs. I don't need to tell everybody about the glory years, the type of rotation we had. Now, and Pat Caputo did a great job of outlining this. They don't have to go out and spend uncontrollably and be wild, but some sort of move that would suggest this organization is serious about winning right now. We can disagree on that. You can say this team isn't ready to win. I, again, would disagree. I would say, look at this rotation. If you get into the playoffs, you got 3 of the best starting pitchers in the American League. All you're missing is a couple of pieces on offense, maybe strengthen up the bullpen, and you're looking at a very, very realistic team to compete. And I think if the front office had their way, it just feels like they just want to keep cycling and cycling and cycling new prospects, internal development. That's all important. Nobody's downplaying that. But to go out and spend and try to get some help, that's not a bad thing. When did that become a bad thing? When did the Detroit Tigers become anti-swinging? I'll use a silly baseball analogy. When were the Tigers as an organization playing it safe, not swinging for the fences, and just, again, what we've seen since really the last time this Tigers team was even sniffing the postseason is just more of the same of prospect after prospect after prospect. And I know prospects are important. It's part of the lifeblood of your organization, but ours never pan out. And I don't want to get into every single example of where it never works out, but A, I was talking with Jeff Rieger about this. I don't trust Scott Harris. And B, Tarek Skubal is, and maybe Skubal's not the guy. Maybe it's Flaherty because he's on the 1-year deal. He's going to have some value. Maybe there's a team out there that would give, a king's ransom to rent him for a year. And then who knows what happens in the offseason. But if the Tigers can somehow, some way, because let's say right now, and I haven't checked the standings after this game went final, but they're somewhere between 3 to 5 games out of a wild card in early June. And I know it's not winning the AL Central because the Guardians have been so good. The Royals right behind them, Twins even above us. But to compete and be in the conversation for a wild card spot and then to go sell at the deadline would just tell you everything you need to know as a fan that, again, this team's not serious about winning and they don't have any semblance of plan to get to the point where this organization once was. And not even just in my formative years, but obviously go back and things were different then in that era of baseball. But a team that won the World Series in '84 and started the season 35-5, we can just kiss those days goodbye forever, because this type of approach, the type of DNA that Scott Harris has instilled in the Detroit Tigers, to me, it just doesn't scream winning. It doesn't scream going for any type of formative winning type of team. And the makeup of this team is just a bunch of young guys and they don't want to spend money. And we might as well be the Moneyball Oakland Athletics and get Scott Hatteberg over there to play first base, because there's no outward sign to the fan base that this organization wants to win. That's what selling at the deadline tells me. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Locked On Sports Detroit on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcast, you can listen to the audio version. It's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. And as far as Locked On, guys, they're doing some really cool things as an organization, one I'm proud to be a part of. But they've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels as well. Locked On Sports, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. You can find Locked On Sports today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And don't forget to check out Locked On Tigers with Scott Bentley. So kind of a bummer of a game tonight, obviously 10-0. Reese Olson gets hit with the loss. He's now 1-7. He goes just 4 innings, allows 8 earned runs, struck out 6. Tigers shut out for the 6th time this season, fall below 500, now 31-32, 14-16 at home. Game 2 of the series will be tomorrow. And I got to double check the start time. I know Sunday. Yeah, it's a 4:10 Eastern time. Casey Mize on the bump. He's been shelled the last couple of times. Freddie Peralta for the Brew Crew. He's 4-3 on the season, 3.74 ERA. Casey Mize is 1-3 with a 4.7 ERA. So we'll be on right after the conclusion of that game. And like I said, it's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Tigers Postcast, and we will see you next time. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit, and talk to you tomorrow.